What's up, guys? It is Dan back with more F1 2021 Cup career mode in the Williams with Nick. It's just going to be me on my own today because I may have accidentally forgot to record both of our commentaries for the race later on. But it shouldn't be a problem. Let's get right underway. These are the development points that we received from practice. We did not get 400 billion. That's Codemaster's fault. We did drop significantly from the last video though, and that is because the regulation changes came in, so we needed to spend all of the points on chassis and aero upgrades, but thankfully we were able to buy them all. For those of you wondering as well, this is the current state of the performance graph. You could see that we've been climbing slowly, remaining ahead of Haas for the most part throughout the entire season, but not quite getting ahead of the other competitors. So underway into qualifying, here we go. Starting off in the dry, which is probably one of the few times we're going to see that today. Placing P14 for me. Unfortunately, Nick was not so lucky and was knocked out in Q1. So I advanced on, and once again, coming round and provisionally place P2 with a half-second deficit to Hamilton, but still was able to get through into Q3. So another successful qualifying for me. Definitely getting a reputation as Mr. Saturday. And yep, Q3, we actually managed to place 6th. Well, the heavens have opened here in Brazil as we are about to get underway for the Grand Prix. Of course, Brazil, known for some absolutely fantastic drivers, such as Felipe Massa, and of course, the F1 legend, Ayrton Senna. I don't think we'll be replicating any of the successes of those two drivers today in Team Williams, but you can only hope that we can at least achieve a finish. We do actually like this circuit, surprisingly, but unfortunately the wet conditions do pose quite a significant challenge for us, but let's just see what we can do. Over to the commentary. Well, it is just me today, as I mentioned earlier, after a catastrophic error on my part, so lights out, away we go for the second time for me at this Brazilian Grand Prix. As we head down towards turn 1, there's some pieces of car flying everywhere, and it looks as though Charles Leclerc has rear-ended Radiant Slothz into turn 1. An absolutely brutal start. It was a good qualifying position for Radiant Slothz, so you can quite honestly say that Charles Leclerc may have single-handedly ruined his race just in one corner, and of course it would be turn 1, and these treacherous conditions will not make it easy to claw back positions, as we now see for one of the first times ever in this season. Radiant Slothz is now side by side with his teammate in the positions, and we may actually see some on-track action between the two, which is something that we haven't seen too much of. Of course, some of you may have seen last race that Justin Freshpot did make a fairly aggressive move on Radiant Slothz, which nearly resulted in the loss of a front wing, but we'll hopefully not see anything quite so dramatic today. Just some good clean racing and plenty of overtakes. Although I am pretty doubtful that we're going to see many, given these conditions do make driving pretty damn difficult. Now, of course, I should mention that I am driving with the medium traction control at this point in the season. I've not yet switched to 0 assists, so I do have a little bit of a better time at driving than Nick. Unfortunately, given that I have not been practicing most of the F1 games in recent years, my skill level is still on the way up and not quite there yet. That's Charles Leclerc is coming into the pits for a new front wing, and I hope his race isn't ruined. Not. And here we got a spin from Radiant Slothz. Unfortunately, that curb there is part of the runoff of that corner. You want to be running the car out nice and wide, using as much of the track as possible, but in the dry, that will be fine. In the wet, a completely different story. as we see a massive track extend and a slide from Justin Freshpot as well, bringing the tally to 1 apiece as Radiant Slothz comes drifting around the same corner in the background and charges his way up towards the back of his teammate. Now, further around, we're still on lap 3, remember. We've only just started in this race, and Radiant Slothz is already having a look to challenge his teammate. Of course, he shouldn't have actually been this far down the field at this point, had it not been for Charles Leclerc, and it looks as though he's not able to make the move into turn 1 on this go-around as they continue their battle down towards this corner, which Justin Freshpot has found particularly challenging up to this point. He looks to the outside, but is just not able to make it round the long way. So we rejoin a few laps later. Let's see if Radiant Slothz is able to just get a bit of a better line out of turn 1 and 2 there. It looks as though he's a little closer this time. He does move to the inside and gets forced onto the grass. Very disgusting driving from Justin Freshpot, and he's not here to defend himself, so I can say what I like about it. As they battle round, Radiant Slothz gets the place. Justin Freshpot with an enormous track extend there. Unable to control the car. Out of control. And another corner cut from Justin Freshpot. The desperation to try and reclaim the position from his number 2 driver teammate just getting the better of him. Although, as we can see here through this particularly intricate section, he does have the upper hand. He is closing up to the back of Radiant Slothz quite well, it must be said, as Radiant Slothz goes wide onto that dodgy curb again. He doesn't seem to be learning his lesson and allows Justin Freshpot a better run at him up the outside, but he's just not able to transfer that into an overtake. You can already see just how slippery it is out there, and we're only on intermediate tyres at the moment. God forbid what the full wets would be like. And there it goes. The rear end of Radiant Slothz car. Funnily enough, not on the curb that time. So I think it was just a case of the pressure from defending 18th place. Got a little bit too aggressive on the throttle coming out of that corner. Something that's particularly challenging when you switch off the traction control completely. And again, around he goes, chewing up the grass on that freshly laid lawn. But yeah, as I was saying, traction control, when you turn that fully off, it's particularly challenging to make your corners. And even with medium on in the wet, you can see Radiant Slothz goes yet again and disappears off of the face of the earth. Are we going to see him re-emerge? I believe we are any second. The leaders are actually closing on him now, and I think we just triggered a safety car with that crash due to the debris. And yeah, there we go. The front wing has come off. So he'll be trundling his way back round to the pit lane. Of course, having no front wing just makes it even more difficult to drive in these conditions. Just got to hand it to the F1 drivers just how challenging this really is. And of course, this is nothing like real life. Now, are we going to see any of the sorcery that we've seen earlier on in this season? It's a little bit hard to see if the front wing's going to have any weird happenings going on with it, but it seems like everything else has gone onto the car perfectly fine. And off he goes on his way once again. I think the original strategy would have been for a 0 stop for this race. And given that the tyres are the intermediates, of course you don't need to make your mandatory tyre change. So you can get away with the 1 stop. And Justin Freshpot, massive lag spike as he comes into the pits. Of course, with the pit assist on, you're able to drive into the pit lane at whatever speed you are able to, which is normally flat out, depending on the pit lane that you're trying to get into. Front jackman spearing through the front nose of the car there. Definitely wouldn't have caused any significant damage to the aero setup there whatsoever. I think Codemasters might need to readdress that animation. as he comes back around and rejoins the safety car queue. Here we go at the restart. Lap 11, coming on to lap 12. So almost 2/3 of the race done, and we've already seen plenty of drama out on track. Unfortunately, at this point, Radiant Slothz is now being blue flagged, but at the same time, he also wants to try and help his teammate, who is just there in the background coming around turn 2. And unfortunately, it becomes very difficult when you've got 4 cars all scrabbling around behind you to try and figure out where on earth you're supposed to let them all past. And, well, how unfortunate is that? Justin Freshpot's able to catch up. Now, I'm not sure how far up the order he might be able to get there, because I'm having a hard time figuring out who is in this queue. I think it's P13 he'd be able to make it up into. And of course, then he has the challenge of catching the rest of the field after that. I think we saw an end plate coming off just now. So there's a bit of jostling going on amongst this pack. Charles Leclerc finally loses a position, and as do Fernando Alonso and Antonio Giovinazzi, but they are not going to give it up. As it goes 3 wide, we've lost another end plate. I'm not sure who that came from. Possibly Antonio Giovinazzi. It would be nice to have the leaderboard condensed down into the shortened names so we can actually see what's going on for a lot of these races. As we rejoin a lap later, and it's Antonio Giovinazzi being passed by Justin Freshpot in Sector 2. He makes the move look very easy. He's not caught out by that horrible corner. But here we go. A few laps later. A couple of laps to go. Justin Freshpot squaring up Mick Schumacher for P14. As we come up the hill. He's not quite close enough. He has deployed some of the overtake. Oh, and he's lost it! That overtake, absolutely deadly when used in the rain, and demonstrated quite well just why it is so deadly. Of course, the extra torque deployed to the rear tyres does not mix well with a slippery surface that is the wet track. And we see Nikita Mazepin comes back round, I believe, and claims P17, and of course Fernando Alonso gets past as well, who's chasing him down. And it's a madness stop. Justin Freshpot has decided for the final lap of the race to switch on to the soft tyres. Obviously a people pleaser, this driver, opting to display some of his rally skills. We'll be hoping that some of the teams in the World Rally Championship will be watching this. Maybe he will turn some heads as he comes around the corner, which caught him out earlier with an enormous track extend yet again. Handles it quite well up the hill. Touch wide as we come up into the hairpins, and a big power slide tunes up a big portion of the lawn on that enormous corner cut. Kicks the rear end out slightly as he cautiously makes his way round. I believe most of the leaders have finished the race at this point. Very deep there, but still managing to keep control of the car, which is looking a little twitchy. Be interesting to see if he can actually make it round. Now, I have a horrible feeling at this point this is not a jump cut, ladies and gentlemen. This is actually what the replay did, and he's binned it in the barrier. The finish line a few feet to the left of the screen as we're looking. So it's a DNF for Justin Freshpot. And Radiant Slothz rounds off. It says lap 17, but he is a lap down. That is the end of the race, as Justin Freshpot has to stare a few feet in front of him at the finish line. Esteban Ocon picking up driver of the day. It must have been a dog of a qualifying session for him if he managed to get that. But Mercedes with a 1-2 finish. Valtteri Bottas, as we'll see in the standings a bit later on, is in title contention at the moment, as are Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. So we'll have to see how things are hotting up. And there we go, on to the winner's podium. Now, of course, we've got 2 races to go, one in Australia which of course in real life has recently been cancelled, and of course the grand finale in Abu Dhabi, which the way things are going will be a title contending race. We'll have to see who is able to best the rest of the field. Up here in the standings, we can see that Lewis Hamilton now leads the championship by just 2 points over his teammate Valtteri Bottas, and Max Verstappen is slowly dropping out of contention. It is now a 3-horse race to the finish. Over on the Williams side of things, Alfa Romeo did jump us in the last race thanks to Kimi Raikkonen's podium. So although we sit 16th and 17th ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi, as a team, Alfa Romeo have pushed us down into 9th, so not an ideal result for us. That's all from us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to hit that notification bell so that you know when the next race comes out. We'll catch you in the next one.